Hello everybody and welcome, and thank you for joining our second webinar as part of our EuroCham and ARISE Plus Cambodia SME Export Talks. This SME Export Talk is going to be on a topic that is very challenging to most, myself included. It can be very complicated from the outside, and it will be on standards and certifications. So thank you for joining today. As a brief introduction to myself, my name is Tom Hesketh. I'm the Deputy Director at EuroCham Cambodia, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. To take you through the agenda very quickly, today's webinar will be just over an hour. We hope to close this off at 11:10 a.m. In fact, I will strictly close it off at 11:10 a.m. It'll be divided into three sections. We first have an introduction section from myself, which I'm going through now, and from Guillaume Maltaverne of ARISE Plus Cambodia, who has some interesting things to share. We'll then go into the main content of our talks, and we're very excited today to be joined by a control union who will provide an introduction to certifications. This is represented by Stephan MOREELS to my left. We'll then go over the process to obtaining a certification. We're happy to be joined by Ms. TOU Tony, who is a pre-audit consultant on this specific topic, and she's been working with a number of MSMEs and SMEs in Cambodia to help them get the first foot on the ladder on the certification process. And then finally, we'll be joined by Khmer Organic Cooperative, who will be representing a case study of a successful SME that has obtained certification and has started to export. So really, we hope to cover the entire, I suppose, process and results of getting the certifications and standards. We'll then have a final, section 3 will be a panel discussion. So I have a few questions to ask the audience member, to ask the panelists, I should say. We have a poll to ask the audience members. So we're really interested in understanding the markets that you want to target, the certifications that you're aware of, the certifications that you think that you should be obtaining. And then this will be discussed by our panelists afterwards. And finally, we'll have an audience Q&A. We've already had 19 questions submitted by the audience members, so we have plenty to go on, but you'll have the chance to write your questions in the chat box then as well. So to move on to some protocols for this particular webinar, we have common questions that get asked in every single webinar, so I'm just going to go over the most commonly answered questions now. If you cannot hear, there's not much we can do on our end. All we can say is please check your internet connection again, rejoin the meeting. We can re-let you into the lobby. Check your speakers, your headset. These are common issues that we face, that the participants face in every single webinar. If we suffer a complete internet failure, this is worst case. We really hope this won't happen, but it is a possibility. EuroCham will be recording the talk with the panelists present, and then we'll send a link to all registered participants at the end. So worst case, even if it completely drops out, we'll be able to send you the recorded webinar via a YouTube video. If you have a question, you can see on the top right of your Teams chat, the chat box. So just write a question there. Please ask, when you write the question, please mention who your question is for as well. This helps me as the moderator. Again, to lower background noise, please just make sure you're muted at all times if you're a participant. And if you have feedback, we'll have a question at the end of the questionnaire at the end of this webinar. But if you have immediate feedback, we have our email address of our communications officer, Champavate Sov, who you can contact at any time. So with those protocols out of the way, I will now pass on to Guillaume Maltaverne, who will be representing GIZ ARISE Plus project, our partner for these particular SME Export Talk series. So Guillaume, off to you.
Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you, EuroCham, for organizing this second edition of the SME Export Talk. So just a few words about myself. My name is Guillaume. Since I graduated, I worked abroad, and I moved to Cambodia 3.5 years ago, joining EuroCham for 3 years, and I joined ARISE Plus team since January. So I could learn a lot about the Khmer economy and doing business environment. Would like to say who we are. So first of all, you will hear very often the term ARISE Plus. ARISE Plus stands for ASEAN Regional Integration, supported by European Union. It focuses on trade facilitation. It's been commissioned and co-financed by the EU and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. That's why you will see the EU and German flag at the bottom of the slide. It's implemented by GIZ, the German International Cooperation Agency. If you want to know more, we have a specific website and we will release a newsletter in July. The newsletter is straight to the point. We explain what we do and why we do that. But today what matters is what we call the SME Export component. So we work closely with 15 companies and we provide technical assistance. And just before the start of the webinar, I was saying out of the 15 companies we are currently supporting, 13 are in the process to obtain a standard and certification because this is a #1 concern to export, actually. So that's why this event is extremely important for us. We also work closely with business associations to contribute to the public-private dialogue mechanism. And today we are here in the framework of the Trade Info event. So when you will see this logo, you will know two things. The topic is related to export and it's relevant for SMEs. We have the objective to conduct 8 events until December 2022. This event will be organized by EuroCham Cambodia. And the next event is about logistic provider for export. It will likely take place beginning of September or mid-September. So stay tuned. You will receive the notification from EuroCham a few weeks before. For each event, we are publishing a brochure. So the brochure provides an overview of the topic. You will find the definition of the term, why is it relevant for SME, what is the connection with export, and some key facts. It will basically help you to know where to look at if you want to know more. So this brochure are available on our website, or RASPER's website, to download. And you could also find them at a EuroCham office in a printing version. I was saying in previous slide, like standard and certification is the #1 technical assistance we are currently providing. So in this regard, we have observed and noticed like many companies that wants to be certified, they sometimes need the support of a consultant because they don't know where to start, what is the process, what is the cost, the time they need to allocate, do they need to hire someone, what is the documentation work to be done. So sometimes the support of a consultant is very helpful or needed. And there are two challenges: the restriction to travel. So consultant-based obviously cannot come to Cambodia, or if they can, it's complicated with the current quarantine. And there is a language barrier. So we are currently organizing a training of trainers that will focus on 3 popular standards. And we hope we will be able to increase the pool of consultants physically present in Cambodia in order to support SMEs in obtaining standard and certification. So if you want to know more, there is contact details of my colleague, Mr. Heng. He should be able to provide validated information about the ARCA certification and also the whole process. So here is my last slide. It is for me, I'm very happy to share this slide. You see 2 pictures. So you see pallets being loaded in a container, and this container is currently at Sihanoukville port and will go to France very soon. And it was only possible because this Cambodian SME successfully obtained a fair trade certification, which was explicitly requested by the buyer. So the buyer is a French retailer that promotes responsible business. It means their consumer care a lot about eco-friendly products. They want to make sure there are social responsibility on the entire value chain, and to make sure and to guarantee this to their consumers, they want to have a fair trade certification. So right now, 8 tons of palm sugar are shipped to France because this company has successfully obtained this certification. And the company has this certification only for palm sugar, and they plan to obtain this certification for other products because it will bring more export opportunities. And also, they think it will also open the gate to other markets in the future. So it clearly demonstrates that certification is not only to meet the requirement of the regulator, but also to meet the requirement of the buyer. So thank you very much for joining us today. And So Tom, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I think actually, if you give the clicker to Stephan, we move on to the next one. Okay, so just starting. So just a very brief introduction. This is Stephan MOREELS, the General Manager of Control Union, a member firm and a company that organizes and undertakes the certification process and audits for a number of Cambodian companies. So Stephan, off to you.
Thank you very much, Tom, for the kind introduction. Before starting, I also would like to thank EuroCham for organizing this event and GIZ for inviting me as a speaker and panelist today. So indeed, today's topic is standard and certification. As Thomas mentioned during the introduction, it can be sometimes quite challenging to understand what it is and how it works. So in this 10-minute presentation, I will try to cover the top of the iceberg and try to simplify a little bit how it works. But before starting, I will kindly give you a quick introduction about our company and who we are. So Control Union is part of the Royal Peterson and Control Union Group, which was basically founded. It's a private and family-owned company, which is now working and established in more than 70 countries. And we have now about around 5,000 people working with us. So what are our core activities? So basically, we have four main scopes. One is commodity inspection or quality control when you export product. Certification, which is the topic of today. Then we have collateral services, which is everything related to stock monitoring or collateral management. And then we have industrial inspection. Well, as you can see on the right side, it basically shows that those activities are not industry specific. So that you basically can apply those things to different type of product or industries like biomass, agriculture, food and feed, offshore, oil and gas, etc. And
apologies, just bear with us for 1 minute.
Yeah.
Can we move on to one more slide?
All right, thanks. And so basically, this wide scope of activities allow us to support our clients all along the supply chain. So it starts basically at the product level and it goes all along until the end consumer. That being said, let's now jump into the real hot topic of today, which is certification. As mentioned, certification can be sometimes confusing and difficult to understand. And that's why I've decided today to highlight and define three key terms that we use on a common basis in our activities, which are standards, certification, and accreditation. And then I will also try to quickly explain when it is compulsory or mandatory to be certified. So let's start with standards. What is a standard? Well, there is no fixed or defined definition for the term of standard. But for today's presentation, I decided to use the one from ISO, which is the International Organization for Standardization, with the headquarters in Geneva. And basically, it says that standard is a documented agreements which contain technical specification or other precise criteria to be used consistently as rules, guidelines, or definition to ensure that either materials, product, process, or services are fit for the purpose. The standards, there are so many which are existing and that we can find on a daily basis as well. But the main categories, I would say, are the product standards, which are really defining how a specific product should look like or how it should be composed of. And then we have the process standard, which in contrary to product are basically defining how a certain product should be composed or should be processed. And then within the process standard, we have again two sub-definitions or two subcategories, which are the management system standard and the performance standard. I will not go into the details because it becomes a little bit too technical, and that's not the purpose of today, but I understood presentation will be shared with you later on, so you get then the time to review those further details. Now let's talk about certification. What is certification? Basically, it's a process by which a third party, meaning an independent and neutral entity, is coming along and is making an assessment of your compliance level, being the product level or the service level. And that basically ensures to the buyers, being it a B2B relationship or a B2C relationship, that the said supplier is compliant with XYZ rules. The organization which is conducting the certification process is called a certification body, or CB in short. And we basically issue certificates at the end of the process once we have found out that the product or the service are compliant with the said standard. Accreditation, that's a terminology that not most of you have heard before, but I think it's also important to point that out, that CBs or certification bodies are not coming out of the blue and saying, okay, yeah, today I'm going to establish a company and I'm going to go assess all the other companies around. No. We are actually also ourselves subject to different rules, which actually allow us to come on site and make the different audit and review documents, have access to your information. And they basically, when they do our own assessment or our own audits, basically they're reviewing our capacity, the knowledge of our and the qualification of our people. And based on their own findings, they allow us to perform certain kind of audits. So we are not coming out of the blue and just checking randomly and making a nightmare for you. So now, is certification compulsory or not? Well, that's a very good question. And in this slide, we'll see that in some cases it can be mandatory, while in some others, it's really a voluntary basis. So when it comes to mandatory, it's basically saying that it is made compulsory by regulation, being it regional or international or by any other kind of legal agreement, that you need to be certified again X or Y, Z standards. So for instance, EU organic, when you want to export organic product to Europe, you are basically obliged to be certified against EU organic standards. In contrary, voluntary standards are basically adding value to your product or your services, but they are not compulsory. It's not made mandatory by regulation that you have to be certified. For instance, Global Gap. So now that we understand a little bit more about what is certification, let's look at what are the advantages. What can you expect once you have been certified? Well, there are so many advantages. Obviously, there are some disadvantages, but yeah, I prefer to show the good side of the road. So when you have a certificate, those are the main expectation you can have. First of all, it kind of ensure you a better market penetration. So as I just mentioned, for instance, with the mandatory mandatory standard, accessing the EU market for organic, well, it's compulsory. So that gives you being able to own this certificate, gives you access to the European market. So it's true as well if you have GIZ for a Japanese market, USDA NOP for USA and so far. It reduces also the impact on your reputation. A lot of companies are stating, well, we are social, we take care about social responsibility, we take care about the environment, but how true are those claims? And that's why having a certificate basically gives credibility to that statement, because third party are coming to assess and making actually a statement that, yes, you are indeed compliant. It also increases the quality and the safety of your product. Well, when you go through, for instance, food safety certification, we have a lot of criteria which are about how you handle your products. You have to go through some laboratory analysis, which basically guarantee your buyer that you have less risk to have foodborne disease afterwards. It can also give you a chance to increase the price. The best example is organic, obviously, where we see that some products manage to get a top up of 50% or sometimes up to 80% compared to conventional product. It also improves the client's relationship. Again, it's based on trust and a relationship with your client, being B2B or B2C. And seeing that an external party was allowed to access your facility, we give credibility to them. It also ensures long-term sustainability, because at the end of the day, when you implement a certain system, management system in place or a product system in place, well, you know what you're going to expect in 5 years, in 10 years. It's always going to be consistent. So at the end of this period, it's going to be more sustainable it's not going to be a roller coaster anymore for your company. Improve traceability and transparency. Well, for a lot of certification, we have what we call COC, or chain of custody, which basically allow you to trace the product back to the origin, or pretty much back to the very origin. And for you as a consumer, or for some big companies, it's actually very important for them to know where the product is actually coming from. And then it also allows you to have a certain product differentiation. Like if you compare an organic banana to a conventional banana, well, you obviously know that the organic banana has been through a heavy process. and compliance rules, which kind of make your product different to a normal banana that you can find in the supermarket. I think also my fellow speaker, Pise, will talk a little bit more about this advantage in our presentation. So now, what is needed for exports? When you are an international buyer, what are you actually looking at when you want to buy in Cambodia? Well, those are 6 key focuses that we have identified, and we are coming like in the top list for the international buyers. When it comes to agri, they want to make sure that the suppliers are taking care, are responsible, and take care of the environment. They are just not dropping up pesticide all around, throwing the wastewater or whatsoever in the environment. They're actually responsible, but they're also responsible about their people, the farmer. They take care of them. Also, safety and quality. A lot of times, buyers, they want to make sure that the product they are buying is safe to consume, being it processed or raw. They want to make sure that if they consume it directly, they're not going to get sick. They also want to make sure that they are dealing with official businesses, so that those suppliers here are meeting legal requirements, being international ones or local ones. Sustainable claims. Nowadays, we have more and more of those big brands who want to make sustainable claims, making again linking a little bit back to responsible agriculture. They want to make claim about that they're taking care about the environment, about the economy, but also about the people. So that's why sustainable claims become a hot topic nowadays. Traceability, I've already discussed that in a previous slide, so I will not go through that again. And social compliance. It's really important for those big brands to make sure that their suppliers are not employing like child, or they are not enforcing forced labor, or they are not taking profit of migrants' labors. So those, I would say, are the 6 hot topics or the 6 key focus that international buyers are looking at. So now to name a few examples of those certification, there are so many which are existing. As I said, certification is pretty much in every possible industry. But for Cambodia, I think the most relevant one are the one related to agriculture. So it's obviously organic, being it EU organic, USDA NOP for US, GIZ for Japan. We also start to see some interest for craft, which is also a European one for BioSwiss. Then we also have sustainable agriculture, Global Gap, which is also known here in Cambodia with the local requirement as CAM Gap. We have Global Gap, which allows you basically to export to other countries as well. We also have now a new coming up standard, which is the Sustainable Rice Platform, SRP, which is obviously only dedicated to rice. And then another big topic related to agri is the food safety. And then food safety, you have different level. I would say the entry level would be GMP and ASAP or HACCP. And then you have more sophisticated one like PRC, ISO 22000, and so far and so on. Another big industry here in Cambodia is obviously the textile, for which some certification and standards are also existing. The most common one are related to organic and to a recycling product as well. So to conclude this short presentation, what are the takeaways of today? Well, basically, certification should always be performed by a third party, which is independent and neutral. It can, in some cases, be compulsory, referring again back to EU Organic, for instance. It increases trust and credibility with all the different stakeholders. It can support market penetration. It can lead to higher price, not always the case, but most of the time it is true. And then it's not always easy, it's time consuming, and it requires continuous efforts. And I think that Tony will discuss that in her own presentation as well. So, well, thank you very much everyone for your attention, and the floor is yours.
Perfect. Stephan, thank you so much for that presentation. I hope everybody online enjoyed that. I thought particularly useful was the slide that had all of the certifications available by sector. That's the first time I've really seen that. It's so difficult to find that information in a concise way. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And we did have one question. Will we share the slides afterwards? Yes, we will. And we'll also share a YouTube link of the full webinar, so you will be able to see this. So with that said, with Stephan's presentation finished, we'll now go on to our next speaker, Ms. TOU Tony. So the process of getting a full certification can be timely and very costly as well, time-consuming and very costly. And one way that you can reduce your costs is by hiring somebody to do a pre-audit for any of your certifications. And so we're very fortunate here to be joined by Ms. TOU Tony, who performs this function for a number of SMEs and MNEs in Cambodia. So I'll now pass on to Ms. TOU Tony to share her experiences. So.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for EuroCham to give me the opportunity to give a presentation, and also GIZ ARISE Plus as well. Okay, I'm Tony. Mostly I do as a consultant for several standard we call management standard, and also I also including the GFI standard, Global Food Safety Management System as initiative. So then I will talking about my role. What is my role as a consultant? So actually, mostly I receive requirement from customer or from requester from company, different size or different sector. They say, okay, they want to have such as this. And then I say, okay, what do you want? And then after that, I had to conduct pre-audit. During pre-audit, I had to do assessment, what level the company is. And then I say, I might conduct assessment based on top management commitment. If the top management commitment is committed through observation, through official communication, unofficial communication, and site tour, then I had to go to site tour to see the resources, processing, what they are doing, and then discuss with the worker, do they understand or whatever. And then I had to go to the goal, what the company really need. If they say, okay, they really want to improve the system, and then I say, okay, it will be move forward. If they say, okay, they want to get the certificate for client because only for the marketing only. And then I might think that some company might think that they have certificate and then show the customer they have it, but actually the commitment from top management is not really for improvement. That is, I really consider, say that either it would be move forward or not move forward. Then I will check for the goal for the interested party. It means for their client. Who is their client? Is from Asian or from Europe or from where? Because different country, different requirement are for local. So all these have to be combined and then assess what the requirement or standard do they need to apply with certificate. And sometimes, as earlier I say, when the top management, they are not really committed to apply or to get or to support the platform to work, operation to work, then I say, I might consider, say that I might reject for the company not to go further, because after consultant finish, after consultant withdrawn, and then company cannot sustain for further, for improvement. Then they might complain that the system, it might lead them to cost a lot of money. So bad practice for the most Cambodia or most SME in Cambodia, most of them they used to copy from one to other one. They are not used to say, okay, I have this such of this resource, such of this resource, and such of this product, finished product that I want. And then they have to design their own process based on their resource or whatever. And then they can come up with that. And then they have fixed or lean or perfect, not really perfect on, I mean a suitable processing according to their nature. So in this case, it would be help them to improve, to save, to reduce their cost. But if they copy from one to the other one, sometimes their process, they have resource, they have good resource already, but they adding the control point or whatever, then it might lead to increase their production cost. That is the main challenge if we talking when they say, okay, they want to export product to other country, but they cannot compete cost, because the reason that they cannot compete cost and because that they increase additional process that no need in their processing. Then they increase manpower, they increase consumption, they increase everything. Let's say most of my time I go to do consultant for water treatment for any industry. Most of water treatment, they say they must install RO, reverse osmosis. When they install reverse osmosis, it means they have to increase the production cost related to changing maintenance, change, filter, cleaning, and discharge water. And reverse osmosis costs a lot of waste for water. It's almost 50% water have to discharge out. It's quite, if we're talking about long-term sustainability or waste management, or we say saving environmental, is via just this system is not very friendly because they may increase production costs. The other one is company, they really they used to appoint one staff to handle only document. They do not. They assign one staff to handle only document, and that staff did not involve in the processing. So the document is in this level, in different level, because the staff who responsible for document, they did not have involved in processing. When they did not involve the processing, they do not understand what's going on in the operation side. So during for this one, during my consultant, I used to push company to let them to involve for the person who responsible for document, also involved in the operation. Then they know what the operation they are doing, and then they create or they establish document according to their actual situation. Otherwise, they are inconsistent or different. Document is different from the operation. That is lead to, say, during audit, may have non-conformity, or we say a problem with the auditor because audit finding. And then the difficulty for the consultant is, one is we are difficult to find the business partnership for supplier. Let's say in Cambodia we have SME, small and medium enterprise. And some small and medium enterprise, they cannot go buy product direct to the manufacturer because some product it need to be export from overseas. Then they have to buy from the middleman, and the middlemen. Some middlemen, they are not really understand what the requirement for the company. If the company want to export or want to do food safety, and then they do not know how do they export, make sure from the manufacturing to the Cambodia for supply to the manufacturing for Cambodia to producing in safe for food safety, they don't know how to handle. If they ship and then they ship food and non-food together, it might be contaminated, and then it might be health via violate or Cambodia cannot meet rule and regulation for exporting. That is the challenging. And the other one challenging for Cambodia is company forwarder company. Most of forwarder company, they do not understand how to export product that we produce from manufacturing to the destination, to the final destination. If They say, okay, this is for food. For food, they need to have special container, clean container. But when we ask for clean container, forwarder company, they don't know how clean, specify in the food industry. So most forwarder company and work for food exporting is very, very hard. Sometimes they bring 3 container and company have to reject at least 2 or all, sometimes it's all 3. So that's why it's challenging for looking for partnership to work and to meet requirement to support factory to export is very, very hard, because if we export, if we put, we transport our product as for food and container is not clean, and then we will reject. If reject, is return is a lot of money. One barrier or challenge is language. Most Cambodian, we use local language. It's not precise enough as used in English language. But most in Cambodian, we are using Khmer language, local language. So when we explain, sometimes it's lost meaning. When we say in English one word, we have full picture. But when we talking in local language, it might be lost something. So we have to further or explain more clear. Then they have to be understand. So that is the barrier for them. It's local language and international and English language. It's hard to understand. And sometimes the person who create document, they prefer to write long, too much, a lot, or they use very technical word. And then the reader, the user is meaning the person who responsible who read or operation. When they read, it's too long and then they are lazy. They don't want to read. Then they used to do what they are doing. It's not based on actual what we prefer to be consistent. That is the one that we have to, we are challenging. The other one is a new technology now for all management system. We say process, we say product, we have input, process, and output. This one is more in modern system, because output is one parameter that we cannot change. That is one specification from supplier or from buyer. They say, okay, they want to have to such of this product. That is our output. But actually in input, we can change, because in our raw material, because most Cambodia export product, and then agriculture is not all the same. So our input raw material or whatever, it can be changed. So when raw material change and then process, we can be readjust process in order to get output the same thing. So when the output the same thing, it means if we can control input and process, it means output will be automatically in the right way. When we are in the right way, we can save costs by reducing the quality control, because when all product move to quality control, it's mid-finish. We cannot correct it already. If the product is we say it's out of specification, it's not meet requirement from buyer, it means throw away or rework again. When rework cost, it will be higher than double or triple. It depends on how process it is.
1 minute left there.
Oh, sorry. So one challenge also implementation. Earlier I talking, we say when the company is not really committed, and then after consultant withdrawn, they stop processing, and then the first year they can certificate, they have certificate, but second year they cannot implement. So when they cannot implement, then the certificate will be withdrawn. Most is when staff they leave, they are not happy with company. They bring along with that document. So the second they have replaced, also they have to restart it again. So at least 6 months have to replace and back to normal situation. Successful story. Okay, in case we have some story, some company they are successful, because of management is committed. All operation level, they like their job. They say they okay, it's their job, and then they are success. And for consultant, they are the one who support only for the technical aspect. So all 3 parties work together, it will be success and sustain. Then their company will be further continue improvement.
Just 30 seconds.
Okay. So for good practice, I suggest now we are technical or we are in digital, would prefer to keep our document in soft copy. It's much more safer. Or if not, then hard copy is okay. And ensure that the person who work in document also work in operation to be understand what are challenging for them. Use simple language to establish document. Make sure the reader easy to understand. And document have to be located at point of use. If they are production, to be in the production. So when they have problem, they say, okay, go and check document. So that's all for my end. Thank you for your time.
Mr. and Mr. TOU Tony, thank you so much for coming in and discussing that. I think, as you would have heard, she shared some real world examples of the challenges that she has seen in companies, and we're under no illusion that this is a really complicated process. The language requirements alone, the technical words used, it's enough to make many companies, many native English speakers confused. And so we understand the challenges faced in Cambodia. So we're very happy to have Ms. TOU Tony join us today, who is one of Cambodia's very first pre-auditors. So yes, so she'll be here to answer your questions afterwards. And we had one question: will we be sharing the contact details afterwards? We'll ask Ms. TOU Tony, and I'm sure the answer will be yes. But if not, please send us an individual email, and we can answer on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, a few things I learned there is it's very important to choose your freight forwarder, because it seems that they can really cause a lot of financial problems if they get things wrong. This will be a topic we address in the next SME Export Talk in just a few months. So now we heard the challenges from Tony, and she's touched on the success stories. And now we have the chance to hear from one of those success stories. So we have Ms. Pisse from Khmer Organic Cooperative, who will share with us the experiences her own company felt overcoming some of these hurdles and the advantages that she's found since obtaining this certification. So, Stephan Pisse, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me to share some of the experience we got in the obtaining the certification, organic certification process in Cambodia. For start, I would like to share a little bit brief about our company. We have started the Khmer Organic Cooperative in 2014, and we are fully established in 2015. We start Khmer Organic Cooperative activity because we have been working with a number of farmer and cooperative from our previous another company that we established earlier. We supply the input and provide technical support to farmer. So in that case, we involved with a number of farmer and cooperative from many years. So we been working with them. We start to formally establish our 2 organic farms, and we are coming up an idea of do it organically in the right way. So, and then we have put our vision in place that we are like to bring our what we like and what we our passion. So we to promote the organic production and organic market development in Cambodia and to the export market in the future. So we have been actually really working on seriously from 2015, 2016, and we received the organic certification in 2017. Also, from 2018 and 2019, we are scaling up our production and our productivity, and we diversify our product to more other area. From fruit and vegetable, we go to peppers, cashew, and other grain product as well. And from 2020 to present, we are also supplies to supermarkets. We've been supplied to a number of supermarkets in Phnom Penh, and also we are also beginning our exporting our main product as well. So what can do today, I'm like to just to share some of the experience in obtaining our certifications and some of the challenge and benefit that we have been we receive. In obtaining the certifications, we have gone through a number of processes. We are learning at the same time. We were been lucky. We were selected by GIZ Asian SAF project to provide technical support through the PPP, public and private partnership project. We had a consultant from GIZ to support us to provide the training, a number of training and guidance. At the same time, our staff who have been training, we develop our internal assurance teams to ensure that after the consultant have gone, we have the team actually continue to our works properly and continue to improve what we are doing. So we have set up with the internal control team to manage the supply chain and operations. We established our own organic farm operation and working with a number of organic farmer cooperative. We'll use our own organic farm as the training center for other farmers. We have been invited a number of farmers to learn and train out at our own organic farm. To comply with the certification and organic compliance, we have to look into the quality control management system. We have been trained in the HACCP and also implement the HACCP concept to ensure that the whole supply chains have been controlled and to minimize the further business risk. We have trained our staff in terms of food safety, in terms of post-harvest management. We have come up with training materials so that we can also provide those trainings to our farmer as well. Not only to our farm staff, our operation staff, but also to other farmers. We have developed the internal control system. We have also developed the traceability and labeling system in our companies. We have, as I said earlier, we have internal control quality assurance team. The team actually have a regular schedule to check our farm, to do farm inspections, and also farmer cooperative. We review our activity plans actually, and also to ensure that the documentation actually is working, because of the audit. During the audit period, the auditor, we've been working with the control union from day one, since 2016. So they are looking at also the way we are operationally documentation and practice actually really working. So we have our award certification since 2016, and we have our certification renew every year. Until now, this is our fifth year audits. Having done all those process and practice, we have gone through a number of challenges. We also receive a lot of lessons learned. I'd like to share here some of the area that we gone through the challenges. We have gone through a number of areas like the documentation area, the knowledge and practical skill, know-how, the operationals, the post-harvest management that we have to work on it, the food safety, the mindset of the staff, and also the grower, the availability of the input, including because in a number of requirements of the organic certification, some of the input are not available locally. We have to produce by our own, and also we have to contact a supplier to provide those that require as under the condition of the organic certification. Plus, we, as part of the certification process, as I said earlier, we have working on the traceability system. It's also quite challenging for us, where the documentation we structure in a way that it works, but it doesn't really work as we plan. So we have to simplify our some of the process, so that to ensure that consistent recording, bookkeeping actually really work. So along the way, we have modified, improved from time to time.
Please say just a quick reminder, sir. We have just 5 minutes left.
Okay.
But please finish by 11 on the dot.
Sure. I'd like to add some more of the point that I've listed here as the challenge that we have also is that we also, on top of the knowledge and understanding of certification, we have to make sure understand so that we can explain to our staff and our partner that we are working with. All of these involve actually costings. The cost from the start, and also the cost that to maintain and improve those internal control system. As Ms. Tony mentioned earlier, that the commitment is important, so we have put a long-term commitment into that. It's also quite challenging because while we have a cost incurs every year and to maintain those, it's really a long-term commitment. But I would say that I will say it later that a long-term commitment also have a benefit to us. At the same time, the last point is the consumer awareness of the compliance requirement also limited. So we work with other partners to raise those consumer awareness of the certification as well. So despite those challenges, we actually have a number of benefits and advantages. So far, we have built our trust. We have our consumer who actually believe in us, and they have repeat their buying with us. They have repeat. They come to us, then they are happy. They show that they trust us, and that's what we actually really achieve our result. Another points that I listed here is the consistent and predictable result of our product quality that we can get from the our amount of reinvestment into our the compliance on operational from operational levels. While we have those, our staff actually really work integratively throughout the process. We also improve our internal communication and planning and administration process at the same time. So our staff by now, they are able to work it smoothly. So I will say that it's a really advantage.
Just 30 seconds left, so please please conclude.
From that, we actually we can able to prevent some of the business risks along the ways. From that also, actually is we gain the competitive edge in our product differentiation to the markets. And also, that's, as I said earlier, that we actually enter to the international markets. We receive the recognition, we receive the inquiry from the international buyer to provide to supply our organic product to international markets. So as I said earlier, that it is a long-term focus, it's a long-term commitment, also a give advantage for us as long-term focus, and also a drive to grow our business and to improve our business efficiency along the ways. So as our result also in 2019, we received our Asian Leadership Awards in the area of rural development. So I'd just like to share the success that we received, the input that we invest, so the result we achieved today. And thank you very much. I hope that my presentation and my sharing is useful to our participation today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Pise, thank you very much as well. Sorry I had to rush you along a bit at the end, but we'll now be moving on to our Q&A session. And we'll have 15 minutes of this. I think if we can just mute Pise, we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A. But we want to start with a quick poll to ask the audience what are the certifications that they're interested in, and what are the markets they're seeking to, or you're seeking to expand into. So I'll just launch the polls quickly. You'll be able to see it. You should be able to see it pop up on your screen, and it's also in the chat now. So we'll be very interested in the answers to these two questions. The first is, what type of certifications are you most interested in learning about in Cambodia? And the second one seems to have a small problem in terms of the market. It comes next. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So please do fill in those forms. while you're here. And in the meantime, I will address, I have a few questions for the moderators, for the panelists. These are the questions that were submitted when you registered as well. So my first question is actually for Mr. TOU Tony. And the question is, I think it'll be interesting to the people in the audience, what is the most in-demand certificate for Cambodia now? What is the certificate that most companies are inquiring about?
For this, depend on industry. So for the, if we're talking about government factory, is more in compliance issue, certificate audit from buyer, requirement from buyer. But more in Cambodia is if they do not export product to overseas, most they are apply for ISO 9001, 2004 quality control for quality management system. And this one also I would suggest to apply it because this one the basic one. When they get it one, then they can have fundamental for their system. The system strong, and then they can easier to get apply for other. And but most in Cambodia for SME is for food industry, and then they can be start to ISO 9001, then move to HACCP or ISO 22000. If they export to overseas for EU or whatever, and then we go for further like GFSI, Global Food Safety Initiative, something like that. Then by more requirement, high requirement. But first, maybe start with ISO 9001 and then HACCP and or ISO 22000 is quite enough.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So it seems like the most common ones are food industry, agriculture, food processing related, and ISO and HACCP are the ones to start with. So then I'd pass the question on to Stephan, just to, if there's any confusion in the audience, I know there probably is a few silent partners who are not aware. What is the key difference between HACCP and ISO? What should the listeners be aware of for this?
Well, basically, as Tony already mentioned, there is a different level of requirement of compliance, I would say, when it comes to food safety. We're now talking about ISO 22000. And usually start with GMP, and then it goes up to HACCP, which are two risk assessment-based standards. And then we go a little bit more into the details and more sophisticated. And then we reach to BRCO ISO 22000. And those are already including within their own standards the principle of HACCP and GMP, but they also allows more rooms for improvements and a continuous management of the different daily processes. So it's really about the level of being more complicated and more into the details. I think that's the main key difference between the two standards.
Okay. So there's one can be a starter step for somebody that's on. Okay, perfect. And then so we have Tony who's doing often the pre-audits, but from Control Union, the company that's doing the complete audit.
Yep.
What is the most common mistake you see at this stage? So they've been through the pre-audit, they've approached everybody, and then they come to you. What is the most common error that you see when they actually reached your stage?
Well, I would say that actually what we see is often people actually don't use consultants. They just think it's a simple phone call to a certification body. Okay, guys, I need organic certification or whatever. How do we do? How much does it cost? Can I have my certificate tomorrow? And that's obviously, unfortunately, not the way how it works. I think as Tony presented during a session, it's quite complex and it required a lot of commitment from the management and also some knowledge from the people involved. So often we are not, when we do audit, we don't talk to the management a lot. We actually talk to what people are called quality assurance people. So they are the ones taking care of doing all the standard operation procedures, so the SOPs, they're drafting all the documents and the procedures. And we often see for companies which are not prepared or who don't which do not understand the standard, that when we arrive, they are not ready, and we end up with 64 non-conformities, for instance. So that's, I would say, the biggest challenge or the biggest mistake is not being ready or not understanding what the standard is about.
Okay. So really it's just that information gathering stage. So the pre-audits are really key in this.
It is. If you are not familiar with the principle highlighted in the standard, if you don't do pre-audits, you have a high chance to fail.
Okay, very interesting. And I hope everyone listening in hears that then. So there is a real, and I think the language barrier is what makes it so difficult.
Correct.
So
right.
Really hiring a pre-auditor is a cost-efficient way of getting yourself prepared to reach the full auditor, which would be a company such as a control union. So my third question was actually to KOC. So Sovan Pisse, I don't know if we can just unmute you quickly. My question was very quickly, just what has been the number one advantage, the key advantage that your company has or has enjoyed since receiving your certification? In your slides, you mentioned the awards and things like this. It seems like there's a lot of benefits already. But if there's one key lesson learned from your own process, what would you like to share with the audience?
I would say the main advantage that I would say among a number of advantage that we receive is the competitive edge that we have enhanced. So we gain the trust from customers. We have the product differentiation from others, and we receive those company image and more company image and gains to the international markets.
Okay, thank you very much. Short and concise. So better reputation and better access to markets, I think summarizes a lot of the findings we've had today. Okay, so the next question we have is actually, this is a very practical question. This was from one of the audience members, and I think it's most likely to be for Stephan, but also TOU Tony, you maybe have something to add. And the question is just very simply, is there a list of companies who perform these kind of services? And if there's not a list, are you able to just share maybe a quick summary of the companies that can perform these services in Cambodia?
Sure. So basically, like wherever you are, it's basically usually always the same, the usual suspects as we call them. Those are the biggest names like SGS, BV, Intertech. They are not everyone is offering the same industry standards. So not everyone, for instance, is involved in agriculture. Not everyone is involved in social compliance. But I would say that the easiest way is just go on Google or on internet, just type certification, maybe the name of the standard you're looking for. And then you will find easily a list of contact person here in Cambodia. Okay. I think that would be the best way and the most famous one that you can find in Cambodia.
Okay. So Tony, are there any other consultants out there like yourself or companies that offer the pre-auditing service?
I have some, but most they are working as a freelance. Freelance, something like that.
So really, there's no concise database.
Because in one of my slides, I was mentioning the training of trainers, and this is something we observe on the ground. Like we need maybe more people with skills, certified, like someone like Tony in Cambodia. And there are two reasons at the moment: restriction to travel and language barrier. Imagine you have someone coming from Malaysia talking in English, so you lose the substance. Translation English to Khmer, you lose again the substance. And it's technical terms. So that's why we want to increase the pool of consultants in Cambodia on 3 main standards. But this is basically like concrete observation when we interact with SMEs, because the consultant is the way to start.
Okay, so an interesting question indeed. I mean, it does seem like it is hard to find this type of expertise in Cambodia. I know the GIZ ARISE Plus is looking to, is offering training in this respect soon. And so really there's a few large companies out there like Control Union and then a few freelance service providers out there. But it could be in a more structured way. And I know this is one of the objectives of Arise Plus, and so hopefully we will be able to share more information to participants.
Just two things. I think to become a consultant is not something you can say, oh, I want to be a consultant tomorrow. You need to have some previous requirement and work experience. And the second thing for the people that will attend this kind of training, it could be also a career opportunity. They can start as a consultant, pre-audit, and then they can continue and work, like Stephan was saying, for the usual suspects in the future. So actually, and for some standards, there are not so many people sometimes because the standard is very specific. So that could be also a great career opportunity for them.
Okay, so you heard it from Arise Plus here first. A new and growing area in Cambodia. If there's any ambitious Cambodians listening in to this call, you feel that you can fill this niche, please reach out to us because yes, we're in contact with Arise Plus, who we know is offering these trainings. So it's 11:12. I said we'd strictly finish at 11:10. I'll push to 11:15 to ask just one more question. And we had so many questions. I have 19 alone here. We have another 5 on the chat box. I'm really sorry, we're not going to be able to get through all of them. We do have them all on record, though. We'll provide the contact details so some of the experts here may be able to address these questions just afterwards. My final question, for those companies looking to just take the first step towards on the certification ladder, the ones who just want to get the low-hanging fruit, the easiest one, what would be yours? I know it's sector dependent, but what would be your recommendations to take that first step?
I would say like maybe to be more, as you said, is usually industry specific, but one which is more cross industry is the ISO 9001 that Tony was referring to, because this is really a basic management system which needs to be in place and which allows company to have a proper structure and a proper set of documents in place to do whatever they are involved with on a daily basis. So I would say to be cross-industry, I would go for ISO 9001. If it comes to agri, well, unfortunately, there is no easier step and then a more difficult step. It's organic. So yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know, Tony, what do you think on that? Also ISO 9001 maybe?
For ISO 9001, for general, but it's if they want to have certain client and then they say, okay, they want to have a specific requirement, then we have to follow. But when we follow, we have to check our result is ready or not ready. Otherwise, you have only after consultant is valid again. So first we have to be, okay, ready. If they are ready, it's move forward. If not, and then better to wait and restructure again and then see we are ready or not ready. First is ready for certificate and ready for further improvement because system is hard to improve. If they are do not just for marketing, it's not improvement, and then audit will be a problem again. Because every system we say continual improvement and improvement. It's not only for system and maintain, it's not improvement, no. It's improvement and save cost. First invest, but save after that.
Okay. So some key lessons to close on. And yeah, thank you, Stephan, for showing so potentially the easiest one that is cross-sectoral is ISO 9001. So for any companies out there looking to get on the certification ladder, as it were, this could be one to look into. So 11:15 on the dot. I'll close off the Q&A now. Again, really apologies to anybody who asked a question we weren't able to get to. We just had so many, there's no time for this. But as I said, please do, we've recorded them all already. We'll be sharing contact details and information and a webinar afterwards, so we'll be able to address some sector-specific questions later. We had questions like, what is the certification for electric cars? Certifications related to organic, to halal. All of these would be wonderful questions that I'd love to dive into. Unfortunately, we don't have the time. So we do have our experts here, though, who can share answers to these questions in the future. So with that, at 11:15, 11:16, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all I think we had 115 participants joining at the peak today. I really hope you enjoyed today's presentation. We hope we cut through some of the jargon, explained it in more simple terms, but of course we welcome feedback. We'll be sending a feedback form afterwards. And so to end, I just want to say a huge thank you to Arise Plus for organizing this series of SME Export Talks with us. Thank you very much to Stephan for joining us today from Control Union, from Ms. TOU Tony, our freelance certification auditor, and also Ms. Sylvain Bisset from KOC. Really, thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you at the next SME Export Talk, which will be in early September. Exactly, this is the plan. Okay, so from the EuroCham side, thank you so much for joining today, and goodbye. Thank you.